Yo, what's up, everybody? Today I'm going to be talking about just a bit of stuff that's been on my mind recently. Just the current state of Konami, and in some cases, I guess the ban list as well. I mean, this is a greater fundamental problem and like perspective that I feel like a lot of people don't usually talk about. So I just want to talk straight down to earth in a language that everybody could easily understand with this. And to that point, I want to firstly begin to talk about the current state of everything, the recent release of Archetypes. Now, this is something that has been a fundamental issue to Yu-Gi-Oh! Probably since they started doing Archetypes. And I guess the first one would be like Glad Beasts or Cyber Dragon Monsters or, Elemental Heroes. They do this thing, Konami, that is, I guess Konami of Japan, where they do this thing where they release these cards and they're just so, broken. These archetypes that are just so clearly broken. And you can say in a lot of ways, like, say for instance, Tier Elements with the Shizu cards, they are broken. They are just broken. There's no reason why both of those should be coming out at the same time, but they do it because that helps the strategy. It makes, buy more product, yada, yada, yada. They're a business, and that makes sense. And I'm not going to be like, oh, fuck them for being a business, because I can't say that. It's, it's a business. I still like the game, and I want it to be balanced, but I respect that. At the same time, to that end, it makes more sense for all archetypes to be good. So there's more value in playing these archetypes. And by some value, it makes every new set, every reprint set more and more value across the board. But it's difficult. And so I feel like it's the easier route to just say, fuck balance, here's a broken deck, buy the shit out of it, right? And it's it's just so frustrating because they know what they're doing. Like, they absolutely know that these cards are good. There's no reason they don't. If anything, Konami, as of late, within the past, I want to say 3 years, have realized what makes a deck good. And they've been doing really well at it. Like, they've been making better and better decks recently in terms of, the power levels, in terms of what they can do, consistency, ceiling, and the skill ceiling, that doesn't matter too much. The point is power ceiling. The point is the end board, the disruption, the consistency, your starters, what's the kind of starter? Does it depend on your opponent? Stuff like that. They've done a lot better. Back in the past, 2016, 2015, you had awful decks coming out. Horrible decks. It didn't make any sense why Digital Bug even existed in the same, breath as, Zodiac or, Pepe, Full Power Pendulum. Stuff like that. These decks were unplayably bad compared, right? And you had other stuff like Dynamis, I'm not gonna say they don't have good cards. I'm not gonna say that they aren't good in some ways, but what I'm saying is they're just so ridiculously unbalanced compared to the other one. And I would say since the anime ended, what is it, Rise of the Duelist, the one with the Dogmatica's release? I would say since then they've gotten a lot better at it. They've been slowly adding support to these archetypes that were previously unplayable, left behind in the dust. I mean, either unplayable from the start or left behind in the dust for power ceiling, the power creep. And that's great. Honestly, that's one of my favorite things about modern Konami, and I love them for it. And I love that they're finally giving these decks support, and not only that, they're giving certain decks just completely broken support, and that's fantastic. I love it. I feel a little indifferent sometimes because they give it just absolutely broken support. Broken. Mathmech Circular has no reason to exist as strong as it does. You could have just had it do the hand effect where it summons itself for free, sending from deck as cost. That's already broken. And then as soon as you summon another Mathmech, you get a search for any spell trap. Need I mention how strong some of these traps in Mathmechs are? I mean, super, whatever it's called, Factorial, right? That card is ridiculous. That card's it's just Revolt, and then you get a Revolt search for practically for free, and then you also get the potential for an extending, and then you have the free immediate rank 4 without your normal summon, without even really locking you. You might be locked into Cyber, so I don't really know too well. I've never played the deck. I've just played it non-goddamn stop on Master Duel, but it's just such a broken card, and it just fits so goddamn well in the strategy, and it's made it a deck that's actually playable, whereas before it was a very niche sort of yeah, it's okay. Then Circular comes out and all of a sudden it's yeah, this deck is pretty damn good. The card is broken. You could have literally changed the words Mathmech to 50 different archetype names, and it would be just as broken in those decks. Like it doesn't. It's just plain broken. It's unfair. And to me, that's what makes a good deck, like makes a deck really great. It needs to be just unfair. Zodiac, right? Rapier, unfair. This card is unfair. Like it's just ridiculous. Broadball, unfair, right? There's just so many ridiculous effects that make the deck just so good, and I love that they're doing that now. But they still consistently release decks that are just bad, unplayable. Like they're playable, but they're not really playable. There are no X Factor cards. There's no unfair card. Like let's look at, say for instance, Dual Avatar. That deck is unplayable. They added a new card, a new fusion, but it's so win more. You need both the end boss fusions that already required fusions to make that fusion. Like I don't know, man. I like the card's good, and like I said, I'm not gonna say it's bad, but there's no unfair cards. You need an unfair card. Weather Painter's got an unfair card. That deck is very like I said, unplayable before. They got the field spell. That deck is very playable. That card is ridiculous. That card is so good, right? Like, it's just something that they're aware of. They know how to do it. I don't know who is like the guy who makes the decision at the end of the day, but it's frustrating because it's totally doable by them, by their hand, and yet they will continually keep releasing decks that are just so broken out the gate, just so obscene that, and at the end of the day, it's like look, Branded Fusion. That card is broken. That card is so good. It's the deck. That's the thing you save Ash for. You let them do whatever they want, but as soon as you see, like, you have to save the Ash for that card because it doesn't matter. That card is just like the X Factor of the deck. It does everything for you, right? It's just very frustrating, and they just like Blue Eyes, right? People love Blue Eyes. And for some reason, they won't release an X Factor card for that deck. They give you the Jet, which is like, it's good. It's a battle phase focus card though, so it's like pretty fucking mediocre. Like decks just need that X Factor. They need that unfairness, and they also release cards that are just like, they still have all these restrictions as well. It's like they call micro nerfs, like preemptive micro nerfs. By adding restrictions preemptively, you make it so like you can, pretty much do whatever you like. You can't just do whatever you want, right? You can't just, be free to fusion summon or to synchro with this card or link summon with this card. You're locked into so and so. It's negated on summon, stuff like that, right? And that's fine. That's fair. But when you don't do that to other archetypes, then it's really unfair. Like you make it so like summoning stuff is super easy, but then you add no restrictions, whereas other decks where summoning stuff is a little bit more tricky, but there's restrictions. Like, say for instance, a particular deck that I've grown to a fondness of late, but just something I've been playing a little bit more, Reptilian Echidna only works turn 2, and it's very strong because you could search reptiles from your deck to your hand up to the number of 0 attack monsters that they have, which on summon she already makes one of them 0, so guaranteed search no matter what. Well, if she's going off naturally. But what I mean by that is like, okay, that's fantastic, but what's the downside? Well, I'm locked into reptiles from the extra deck. How the fuck is that fair when you have cards like Kitkalos that's milling for 5 on summon, right? That's also like super easy to make. Like, you have these ridiculous cards that are just so stupid. And like, let's say for instance Snake Rain was printed today. I guarantee you it would have crazy restrictions, like you can only summon reptiles for the rest of the turn, or it would just be something ridiculous. But even now, I guess maybe they made all the reptile decks suck ass because Snake Rain exists. But Ogdoadic, where's the new support for this? Imagine if Circular was on Ogdoadic. It's like the perfect card. It doesn't even need to search the spell trap. You already have that, but it's still like the perfect card. An extender sets up the graveyard, but no, instead Mathmech has it. It's just very frustrating. It's one of the biggest downsides to this game that I can personally think of. Like, again, I love that Konami is giving these decks these chances. I love that they're having an opportunity to be able to play at a higher level. Allow people to play it at a high level, previously which you couldn't. Like, I mean, I could name like 10 different unfair cards that exist in this game that make decks just straight up viable. Like Nadir Servant. Like Dogmatica would not be playable if it wasn't ever for Nadir Servant. That card is ridiculous. It's like a plus like 2 or 3. You know, it's just so, it's so good. But you know, that's my opinion on it. It's a frustrating part of modern Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't hate that the game has to be unbalanced. I don't hate that they have to sell things. I just wish they had a better perspective on the cards that they release, because they absolutely do. I mean, it doesn't take a genius playing this game, deck building in this game, to realize what decks are good right out the gate. Like you read them and you just go, yeah, this is gimmicky. Oh yeah, this is a super high roll. You know, it's like these decks don't work from the out the gate, and I don't know who in R&D is playing against their grandmother, being like, "Ooh, this is pretty good. Look, you can fusion summon twice with and dual avatar with 1 card." Okay, you know, who gives a fuck? The fusion summons suck my ass, so it doesn't really matter, does it? You know. So it's just, you know, that's my own opinion. If you agree, disagree, that's on you, right? I mean, again, I'm glad that they're at least giving support. It's kind of fun at the same time when a deck that was like pretty much unplayable gets new support and it's just so good. Like the Dream Mirror card, it's not broken. It does everything for the deck, but it doesn't do enough. It just, you still lose to 1 singular interruption. It's just like a reality that you have to face with this deck. And, you know, it's still a reality that unfortunately Konami still hasn't, you know, really adapted to entirely. You know, I've said my piece. You know, I have nothing more to say. Yeah, I mean, give me your opinions. Agree, disagree, that's fine. You know, I don't mind discussing it. But that'll do it for me.